Derek Chauvin will be changing his plea in his federal case. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kelsey Carlson.
And I'm Randy Meyer. The scheduling of the hearing signals that Chauvin intends to plead guilty to charges of violating George Floyd's constitutional rights.
And our Hannah Flood joins us from the St. Paul Federal Courthouse with more on what this potentially means for the federal case. Hannah?
Kelsey and Randy, Derek Chauvin is expected back in this federal courthouse in St. Paul on Wednesday to change that plea. Now, in federal court, you only have two options, guilty or not guilty. He's already pleaded not guilty, so this news of a change of plea suggests that he may be pleading guilty. Okay, so what does this mean for this constitutional rights violation case? Well, it could mean that Chauvin and his legal team have come up with some sort of agreement on time that Derek Chauvin could serve related to this charge. This is a serious charge. It holds a sentence up to life in prison, even death, depending on the case. So it could be some sort of agreement on time. It could also be an agreement on accommodations. The attorney I talked to today said he thinks that makes the most sense. This could have been a deal where federal prosecutors and Chauvin's team worked out some sort of agreement on where Chauvin will serve his time. Federal prisons are known for having some better accommodations, maybe even better accommodations for Chauvin's case in particular, being an ex-police officer. So that could be part of this deal. It could also be some sort of tactic in this case that Chauvin is facing with the other officers. Tao, Lane, King, and Chauvin were all supposed to face these charges together as the four of them as one unit. Now, with Chauvin out of the mix, the attorney I spoke to said it really might not have a very big difference for those three other officers and how their case will go. But there is one important change. With Derek Chauvin now not being a defendant in this case, he could potentially be called up as a witness.
That may be part of the deal, is that he'll testify. One of the things is that when they come up with some kind of plea agreement, they usually include in that you'll agree to testify or at least provide some sort of statement and say the following things as part of the agreement.
Now, again, these charges that the officers are facing in federal court have to do with a violation of George Floyd's civil rights during that incident back in May. Mike Bryant told me when Chauvin is here in court on Wednesday, two things could happen. He could simply change that plea, and then they schedule a time for sentencing, or depending on how much of a deal is worked out between Chauvin's team and federal prosecutors, everything could happen on Wednesday, the sentencing as well. So a lot to watch here. It is important to note, though, that Derek Chauvin would serve his state time, those 22 and a half years in federal prison, if he does end up serving time. Mike Bryant told me there's not a chance that he would end up serving less than 22 and a half years. In fact, it'd be more likely that he would have some extra federal time tacked onto it. But I just want to make an important note that he would not go and serve federal time and then come back to the state to serve his time. So definitely a lot to watch here. Again, that hearing is scheduled for Wednesday.